प्राणायाम कर लो, जीवन पूर्ण बनेगा। भावातीत ध्यान कर लो, जीवन पूर्ण बनेगा। अनुभव कर लो, अनुभव कर लो, जीवन पूर्ण बनेगा। भावातीत ध्यान कर लो।
Okay, can we stop now? Sunita, just put it on hold, please. Okay, so Sunita?
Yes, Hemaji.
So we have 2 more minutes by my watch. Is your watch saying the same thing?
Yes, Hemaji.
Okay, play it for 2 more minutes and then stop at 7:30, please.
Okay, Hemaji.
भावातीत ध्यान कर लो, जीवन पूर्ण बनेगा। भावातीत ध्यान कर लो, जीवन पूर्ण बनेगा। अनुभव कर लो, अनुभव कर लो, जीवन पूर्ण बनेगा। 20 मिनट बस ध्यान कर लो, जीवन पूर्ण बनेगा। सुबह शाम बस ध्यान कर लो, जीवन पूर्ण बनेगा। आसन प्राणायाम कर लो, जीवन पूर्ण बनेगा। अनुभव कर लो, अनुभव कर लो, जीवन पूर्ण बनेगा। भावातीत ध्यान कर लो।
Jai Gurudev. Swagatam to all. Welcome to our weekly Maharishi Gita Satsang. We are on chapter 4 now. We will begin. Manish ji.
जी दीदी। जय गुरुदेव दीदी।
हाँ, जय गुरुदेव।
जय गुरुदेव दीदी।
सहना भवतु करना।
जी दीदी। ओम सहना भवतु सहनो भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनामधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। जय गुरुदेव।
Jai Gurudev. Today we will be studying verses 15 to 18 of 4th chapter. But before we do that, I would like to briefly recap what we have studied in the last session. We have learned that first we started with the 11th verse, in which Sri Krishna Bhagavan says that action and reaction are equal to one another. That is natural law. And he says that as men approach him, he favors them. It doesn't mean that he loves some people more than the others. For example, Ganga is same everywhere, but if you take 1 liter bottle to bring Ganga Jal, you get 1 liter bottle. But if you take a 5 liter bottle to bring Ganga water, you get 5 liters. Ganga Ji gives you whatever you ask for. So it's like that. And Bhagavan also says that men follow his path. That is, others learn from him and follow his example of giving love and kindness in an unselfish way. Just like the Ganga is flowing, same for all. He is giving his love and kindness to all in an unselfish way. So people learn from him and they follow his path. So that was in the first shloka. Now after that, beginning verse 12, the discourse on action begins. The title of this chapter is Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga. So here we are getting the knowledge of karma and karma sannyasa. We will get to that shortly. So we have studied about karma yoga in the last chapter, chapter 3, quite extensively, but there is more to karma yoga and karma action, and that we will be studying now, beginning chapter 12. So from here begins the discourse on action. So it is said, we learn that wise people do yajnas for success in life. And yajnas are one type of activity. We have studied that on 2 levels. One is gross level, physical activity. You're pouring ahuti into the yajna kunda. And then the other is subtle activity. But nevertheless, both are activity, one on gross level, one on subtle level. So yajna means it is one type of activity, one type of action. And this leads us to the very important shloka that we have studied last week, in which who should perform what kind of action is described. That is the 13th verse, in which Sri Krishna Bhagavan says that he created the 4-fold order according to the division of gunas and actions. So here now we are dealing with actions again, and we have studied about what are the functions and actions of the 3 gunas. As we have already studied, the entire creation is the interplay of these 3 gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. They interact with each other, and as a result, the 4 categories are created. So, when sattva dominates and rajas is secondary, they fall into the category of the learned, knowledgeable people. And their function is to give knowledge. They are called as Brahmins. So we said that Raja dominates in this category. Sattva is the quality of peacefulness, balance, harmony, goodness, purity, creativity, positivity, virtue, universalism, and holism. It also means tranquility, restraint, and austerity, purity, and patience, knowledge, and wisdom. So these are the intrinsic qualities for Brahmins. Here, Satoguna is dominant and Rajas is secondary. So that's the first category. In the second category, we see that Rajoguna dominates and Sattva is secondary. And they fall into the category of Kshatriya. They are warriors, and their duty is to maintain law and order. So they are equipped with those kinds of qualities and gunas. Rajas is the quality of movement, dynamism, passion. A king cannot just sit there. He is active, taking care of the citizens and maintaining law and order. They are driven. And valor and strength, skill in weaponry, etc. These are the natural qualities of Kshatriyas. Here we have seen Rajas dominates and Sattva is secondary. So that is the second category of Kshatriyas. When we move on, the next category is where Rajas dominates and Tamas is secondary. They fall into the category of Vaishya. They are in charge of commerce, finance, economy, etc. They also do agriculture, dairy farming, and commerce that I have already mentioned. So here, Rajas dominates and Tamas is secondary. When Tamas dominates and Rajas is secondary, they fall into the category of Shudra. Here, the quality of dullness, laziness, ignorance and delusion, imbalance, disorder, negativity, violence, viciousness, these are the qualities that dominate because these are the qualities of Tamas. Serving through work is the natural duty for those with these qualities. And here, Tamas dominates and Rajas is secondary. So if you noticed, Sattva is not much in the last two categories. This is the fourfold order. It is based on the function and action of which the gunas predominate. So our actions are dependent upon the gunas that we have. And that is how we perform, that is how we behave. One very important thing to remember is that the gunas are not static. It's not that you are born with some gunas and they stay with you for the rest of the life. Their balance changes all the time, depending upon how you balance them. You have control over your gunas. You can increase any guna that you want. You can increase sattva or rajas or tamas based upon what you do in your life. With Maharishi technologies, we are able to change the gunas. We can increase or decrease any guna with transcendental meditation and Siddhi program, with Vishnu Sahasranama, listening to it, with diet, with herbs such as Brahmi and Brahma Rasayana, etc. We can increase sattva very easily. And when sattva increases, we are moving higher, going higher in evolution. But if we do things that are increasing rajas or tamas, then we increase those qualities. For example, if rajas supports tamas, then we increase laziness and we are not progressing. We are not able to move in the direction of higher level of evolution. So it all depends on us. Everybody has this rajas that gives a spur to activity. So if rajas supports sattva, then we are progressing, moving in higher states of consciousness faster. But if we choose not to increase sattva by not meditating, not listening to Vishnu, not eating sattvic diet, then we are not progressing. We may even go downhill. We may, run into some problems because this increases destructiveness and violence, and ignorance is the biggest enemy. So that is up to us. We have a choice. So because our goal is to rise to Brahmi Chetana, then if we perform sattva increasing activities, we reach Brahmi Chetana. That's what this verse is trying to tell us. And the definition of a Brahman, one who is in Brahmi Chetana, is that he has Atma Jnana and he follows his dharma and he is well versed in Vedic knowledge. He's balanced with steady intellect. Remember, we studied steady intellect, Sthita Prajna in second chapter. So he's established in steady intellect already. He's compassionate with pure heart. And he delights in helping others and he's humble. So these are the qualities of dharma. These are the qualities of Brahman who is established in Brahmi Chetana. So that is our goal and we are moving towards that. So that is, in brief about the fourfold categories based upon the gunas and their actions. So in the last shloka of last section, we discussed that actions do not involve Bhagavan and that his activity is divine because it's not in the field of gunas. And we also learned that he does not have any longing for fruit of action. And this is because he's content. And when you are content, you're not looking for any fruit of action. And the last and the most important point we have studied is that the way to truly know Sri Krishna is by understanding of what he is and having the direct experience of transcendence, where he's there in the silence of Atma. Such a man is not bound by actions and he is liberated. So two things are important here. One is intellectual understanding of what Sri Krishna Bhagavan is, that we have already studied in chapter 2 and also in chapter 3. And then the other thing is to have the direct experience of transcendence. Both together will take us to higher states of consciousness. So I'll stop here and we'll take questions in the end. Dr. Bhuvanesh Sharma ji is going to join us in a little bit. And now we will move on to the next phase of our satsang. We will begin now discussion of verses 15 to 18. So we will begin with verse 15. I will read the shloka 2 times in Sanskrit and then we will carry on with English translation. Jai Gurudev. एवं ज्ञात्वा कृतं कर्म पूर्वैरपि मुमुक्षुभिः कुरु कर्मैव तस्मात् त्वं पूर्वैः पूर्वतरं कृतम्. एवं ज्ञात्वा कृतं कर्म पूर्वैरपि मुमुक्षुभिः कुरु कर्मैव तस्मात् त्वं पूर्वैः पूर्वतरं कृतम्. Having known this, even the ancient seekers of liberation performed action. Therefore, do you perform action as did the ancients in olden days? Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev, Hemaji.
Go ahead.
Okay. Having known this refers to the teaching of the two previous verses in order to bring home to Arjuna that there could be a state of life in which greatest activity could not be disturbed, the eternal status of absolute being. Shri Krishna Bhagavan in the two previous verses gave an example of this state by referring to his own case. Seeing thus before him a living embodiment of the ideas which were being taught to him, Arjuna might then become convinced that he also could rise to this state in his own life. Ancient seekers of liberation, this expression refers to Janaka and others. Chapter 3, verse 20, the use of the phrase seekers of liberation makes it clear that the action is necessary even when for those who have devoted their lives to the pursuit of truth and are not interested in anything other than liberation. But as the expression having known this shows, knowledge about the real nature of Sri Krishna Bhagavan is a prerequisite for the activities of seekers of liberation. When the seeker of liberation has attained cosmic consciousness and realized himself as separate from activity, he has reached his goal. He will be liberated from the bondage of action, and if he has no greater ideal before him, he will feel fulfilled. But if one feels fulfilled in the state of cosmic consciousness and does not aspire to God consciousness, then one has missed the chance of the supreme attainment, that is, union with God. For this reason, knowledge about the real nature of Shri Krishna Bhagavan is essential even for the seekers of liberation. There is no doubt as to its necessity for the seekers of God. In this verse, Shri Krishna Bhagavan wants to make clear that knowledge of the three gunas and their interplay should be supplemented by the knowledge of the essential nature of the Lord, that is Shri Krishna Bhagavan, in order that it may bring fulfillment to the state of liberation. Ancients in olden days, by this expression, Sri Krishna Bhagavan gives authority to his statement. The teaching is that the part of evolution that has withstood the test of time should not be doubted, because only that which is in accordance with the laws of evolution can last. Anything that does not conform to these laws is thrown off by nature. In the following verses, the argument turns to a close analysis of action. Jai Gurudev.
This shloka tells us that knowledge of real nature of Sri Krishna Bhagavan is a prerequisite for activity of sadhakas, that is spiritual seekers. So we all are sadhakas, we are spiritual seekers. So we need to know what kind of action we need to be involved in to rise in higher states of consciousness. And this had been made clear in the last 2 verses already. And Bhagavan is saying that ancient seekers of liberation, having known this, quote unquote, this, performed action. And he's telling Arjuna, you also do the same thing. So what does this mean here in this shloka? It means that, number 1, knowledge of 3 gunas and their interplay. Because we have seen in 3rd chapter that it is gunas that interact with gunas and self is separate from the gunas. So that knowledge one needs to have. And then the other point is, we need to know the essential nature of Krishna Bhagavan. So knowing these 2, nature of gunas and the nature of the nature of the transcendent, nature of Krishna Bhagavan, this will bring fulfillment to the state of liberation. So I will go over the scientific research on this shloka. In this scientific study, the phrase perform action as did the ancients. This was taken into account. And it was found that after 3 months of transcendental meditation practice, there was an increase in the occupational coherence. They didn't really explain what it was in the scientific chart, but it probably means that there is increase in harmony with the co-workers. So more harmony and more peace is always good in the work environment as well as in the social environment. So that is the benefit, and this had been correlated with this shloka. Okay, any questions? Go ahead and ask, please.
Maji, I have 2 questions.
Yes, Maria, go ahead.
Thank you. The first one relates to what you were talking about, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, the 4 sections of society.
Yeah.
I would like to know if somebody is unfortunate enough to live in, to be born with the tamasic qualities, what is it that makes him rise out of that tamasic quality? Is there always an element of rajas that will help him out automatically by the force of evolution? Because you're saying that it's our choice, and it's out of our choice that we can rise above these qualities. But if you're unfortunate to have very tamasic qualities, what is it that makes one rise above?
Your past karma.
Oh.
And Dr. Bhuvnesh Sharmaji is going to join us. And I have been talking about from my side. And of course, all my knowledge is from Maharishi. But we will hear a different angle today when Sharmaji joins in a few minutes, in about 10-15 minutes. And we will bring this up again because this is a very important shloka. And I would like everybody to be very clear on this one. So we'll come back to it. But you know, Maria, that when we are born, we are bringing the past baggage with us, you know. So that's why we are in certain situations. And then when you have to make a choice, then people with good samskaras, they call it, they make good choices. Say, for example, you are 20 years old and you go to a TM introductory lecture. There are 100 people in the audience. And some people, they want to learn TM, and the other people, they don't want to learn TM because it's not getting into their heads that learning TM is a good thing for you. So that which is making you go for TM is something that you brought with you in the baggage. So to some extent, it is beyond our control. But on the other hand, like Maharishi always said, you have a free will also. Your intellect is always there. The intellect is telling you, you should do this or that. Mind may be pulling you on one side, but the intellect says, no, you should be doing this, like that. So that constant, debate is going on. And then finally we end up doing, depending upon what the intellect decides. So that's where it comes from.
Hemaji,
Beautiful.
can I add something, Maria? If you
Yeah.
like this statement,
Thank you.
the choice you take is the destiny you make.
Mm.
I read somewhere and it really struck me well. In life, the choice you take is the destiny you make. Hemaji, does it carry some weight?
Yes, definitely. So that's why Maharishi says we always have a choice, especially in Ayurveda. You can drink Coke if you want, or you can drink honey lemon water if you want. You have a
Right.
choice. At every step, you have a choice. And if you
Right.
eat healthy, you will have good health. So you're making your destiny. And we all know how important health is for us. So right there, So, I mean, in our sampradaya, we always say that we take it as it comes and we don't try, we don't push ourselves, we don't put strain. But resisting temptations is an important thing, So if you have two things, something that is very unhealthy and something is healthy, you have to make a choice. And then sometimes you may have to resist the temptation to eat something that is very bad for your health. So what we do it gradually. Sometimes it's not easy to stop pizza and beer overnight, So we try to do it gradually. If you eat pizza every day, make it 3 times a day, 3 times a week, then 2 times a week, then 1 time, then gradually. And as you're practicing meditation, you are developing balance inside of you. So that will help you. So you do your TM, you do your program, and then, you follow, this routine of gradually moving away from bad habits, and that will work. That has worked for many, many people.
Hema, what you're saying now reminds me again, if I may say, it reminds me again of how Maharaj described the grace of God. That you have these laws of nature. Okay, you've got the laws of karma and everything. So, but you're born into this tamasic situation. But by the grace of God, you can rise above through one's consciousness to rise above those laws. And like you say, burn those seeds of karma. So it is actually a beautiful illustration of that mercy, actually. It's an actual gift, that freedom of choice, that it's really a great thing that it's so powerful. So powerful. Thank you.
Yes, yes. So let's move on to the next shloka.
I just had one more question, though. May I say, or shall I ask later?
Can you wait till Sharmaji comes? He's so
Okay,
good.
thank you.
Yeah.
You're so good, Hema.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So now let's move on to the next one. Okay. Can you make it a little bit larger? I'm searching for my... Okay. Okay. Kim karma kima karmeti kavayopyatra mohitaah tatte karma pravakshyami yajñatva mokshase shubhat. Kim karma kima karmeti Kavayo yatra mohitaha. Tatte karma pravakshyami. Yajñātva mokshyase shubhat. What is action? What inaction? Even the wise are bewildered here. I shall expound to you that action, knowing which you will be freed from evil.
Jai Gurudev. In the previous verse, Sri Krishna Bhagavan gave Arjuna reasons for action. So it is natural that in this verse, he should bring out the gravity and far-reaching influence of action in order to prepare Arjuna's mind for the details of that action, which will be useful to him and deliver him from all evil. Ignorance of one's own blissful divine nature as non-involved and independent of activity keeps one under the binding influence of action, causing the complications and sufferings of life. Sri Krishna Bhagavan says that even the wise are bewildered over the issue of action and inaction. The wise man is he who has understood that action is by virtue of the three gunas and that he himself remains uninvolved because his true nature is transcendental. But such understanding, says Sri Krishna Bhagavan, is not sufficient, for even the wise continue to be bewildered. The wise have known the self as separate from activity and thereby they have attained liberation. Sri Krishna Bhagavan says that even the wise are bewildered over action and inaction. Gaining freedom from action is one thing, gaining full knowledge about action and inaction is quite another. Sri Krishna Bhagavan says in the next verse, unfathomable is the cause of action. It is impossible to know the full range of action on the level of intellectual understanding. That is why Sri Krishna Bhagavan says, even the wise are bewildered. It may be recalled that while enlightening Arjuna with the wisdom of Sankhya in verse 38 of chapter 2, Sri Krishna Bhagavan said, having gained equanimity, you will not incur sin. In the present verse, he says, I shall expound to you that action, knowing which you will be freed from evil. A careful study of these expressions unfolds the ascending order of the Lord's teaching. As the capacity for understanding increases, the teaching is imparted in subtler yet simpler forms. In the earlier verse, it is implied that something has to be done to gain the equanimity, which will result in freedom from sin. In the present verse, Sri Krishna Bhagavan shows that nothing has to be done, that simply by the knowledge of activity, Arjuna will be freed from evil. The teaching has shifted from the level of doing to the level of knowing. It may well be that as the teaching advances, even knowing will be replaced by a simpler process on the common sensory level of hearing or seeing. This is the technique of teaching Sankhya. A series of arguments will eventually culminate in some simple spoken word which will revolutionize the whole understanding of life and will once and for all raise a man to the state of eternal freedom from bondage. It is also of interest to note that the two preceding verses proclaimed liberation from bondage through knowledge of the non-involved nature of the transcendent Lord, whereas this word promises freedom through knowledge, even of the relative field, the knowledge of activity and non-activity. This knowledge is given in the following 5 verses. Jai Gurudev.
So in this shloka, Sri Krishna Bhagwan is telling us about the far-reaching influence of action, knowing which we will be freed from evil. So evil causes suffering, we all know that. And we know the cause of suffering is from ignorance of our own blissful nature of Atma, which is non-involved and independent of activity. Bhagwan is saying that even the wise is bewildered. Why? Because it is impossible to know the full range of action on the level of intellectual understanding. And this takes us to the next shloka, where we are going to talk a lot more about the full range of action, what is action and non-action and inaction and all that. But before we move on, let's talk a little bit about the scientific research on this shloka. For this shloka, the phrase freed from evil is taken. And it had been shown in this study that with regular practice of transcendental meditation, in maximum security jails, prisoners showed decreased hostility. And also, there was increased progress towards peaceful resolution of conflict. So it is significant in the sense that this was conducted in a maximum security jail. So we can see how, transcendental meditation helps people in, all different levels of consciousness. Okay, so any questions? Okay, so we move on to the next one, and I'll read the Samskrita. Karmano hyapi bodhavyam bodhavyam yavikarmanaha akarmanyascha bodhavyam gahana karmano gatihi. Karmano hyapi bodhavyam bodhavyam yavikarmanaha akarmanascha bodhavyam gahana karmano gatihi. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.
Okay, I will read English also, sorry. Action indeed should be understood. Wrong action should also be understood. And inaction should be understood as well. Unfathomable is the course of action. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev. Action. To understand action, it is necessary to know the different states of consciousness of the actor, because the value of action depends mainly upon the level of consciousness of the one who acts. The possible states of consciousness are waking, dreaming, sleeping, transcendental consciousness, cosmic consciousness, and God consciousness. Action is here used to mean right action, which produces life supporting effects for the doer and for the entire creation. Action which helps the evolution of the individual and simultaneously serves the cosmic purpose. Such action is possible only when man's mind is in complete harmony with the transcendent being, which underlies all creation and is the basis of all life and all the laws of nature. This is the case in cosmic consciousness. God consciousness is another state where such action is automatically carried out. In cosmic consciousness, a man established in cosmic life performs action as an individual. In the state of God consciousness, the individual's activity set in the light of God is on a level which corresponds to the level of cosmic activity. He lives the eternal unity of life through all activity. Unfathomable is the course of action. One's natural activities in the three relative states of consciousness: waking, dreaming, and sleeping, are governed by the dharma of one's level of evolution. Dharma differs at different levels of evolution. Moreover, even on the same level, dharma differs in different circumstances and in different spheres of life. In all these differences, there is the additional complexity that in each case, dharma refers not only to activity as it affects the individual, but also as it affects the family, society, the nation, and the world. Every thought, word, or act sets up waves of influence in the atmosphere. These waves travel through space and strike against everything in creation. Wherever they strike, they have some effect. The effect of a particular thought on any particular object cannot be known because of the diversity and vast extent of creation. This complexity goes beyond the possibility of comprehension. That is why the Krishna Bhagavan says, unfathomable is the course of action. Wrong action can be of many kinds. Actions that harm the doer in the present or the future. those that do not succeed, those that hinder evolution, those that lead to dissolution, those that bind the doer to the cycle of birth and death, those that produce life-damaging influences upon the surroundings and upon others, those that are against the laws of nature. Even the field of wrong action is thus found to be unfathomable. Such wrong actions are possible so long as the doer is in the state of ignorance about his own dharma, so long as he is unaware of the essential nature of his own self, the nature of activity and the nature of God, and so long as his waking state of consciousness is not supported by transcendental pure consciousness. Inaction, absence of activity. Deep sleep is a state of inaction, but it is not the only such state. The state of inaction is also found in transcendental consciousness. Furthermore, inaction is an essential constituent of cosmic consciousness and also of God consciousness, the highest state of human evolution. On the one hand, inaction is the inertia of sleep, while on the other, it becomes the basis of the living reality of the whole cosmos. This is what the Lord means, Sri Krishna Bhagavan means when he says, inaction should be understood as well. This shows not only action, but also inaction to be unfathomable. Indeed, by this word, Sri Krishna Bhagavan emphasizes the need for knowledge of action. Life means action. No one can escape activity. This being so, it is wise to know not only what one is going to do, but where, as a result, one is going to end up. It will be interesting to observe closely how Sri Krishna Bhagavan, having admitted that the course of action is unfathomable and having emphasized that it has to be understood, manages to steer a fine course between these opposing facts. To justify his expression, unfathomable, wisdom demanded that he did not enter upon an examination of the course of action, but the word indeed demands that whatever way he adopts, whether he enters into detail or not, knowledge of action must be conveyed. Sri Krishna Bhagavan adopts a mode of instruction whereby, without knowledge of the whole field of action, one can acquire every benefit that such knowledge could bestow. He brings to light the art of action, whereby, without having to gain knowledge of action, one can enjoy the blessings which such knowledge would give. This art of action is like the art of a gardener who, by watering the root, makes the sap rise to every part of the tree without having to know anything about the mechanics of rising sap. Such is the marvel of perfection of this discourse. Sri Krishna Bhagavan has said that knowledge of action is necessary, and yet the course of action being unfathomable. Knowledge of it must remain incomplete. He therefore brings to light a technique by which the effects of knowledge will be gained without the necessity for gaining the knowledge. This is because Sri Krishna Bhagavan's teaching is not for the sake of knowledge as such. It is solely to produce a specific effect in the practical life. What is important in the effect, not the knowledge? This is the discourse of Yoga Shastra, the most practical philosophy of divine union. Its purpose is to give the practical wisdom whereby any man may naturally gain the highest good through his activity. The following verses clarify this teaching. Jai Gurudev.
So now we are really getting into the details of what action is, inaction, right action, wrong action, etc. So in order to understand action, first we need to know the different states of consciousness, because the value of action depends on the level of consciousness. So we all know the different states of consciousness: waking, dreaming, sleep, transcendental consciousness, cosmic consciousness, and God consciousness. When we say action here in this situation, it means right action. So let us see what right action is. Right action is one which produces life-supporting influence on the individual as well as on the cosmic level. So such right action is possible only when one is in harmony with the home of all the laws of nature, that is Atma. This is the case in cosmic consciousness and God consciousness. So we come to the point of unfathomable is the course of action. This unfathomable is the course of action. It applies to right action, wrong action, and inaction. So we will see what the different actions are. One is right action. We said it is producing life-supporting influence to the individual and to the family. Now let us see what wrong action is. The natural activities of an individual are governed by his dharma, and it depends on the level of consciousness. So what is dharma for one may not be dharma for the other. And what dharma one does or one follows can be different in different circumstances. And also it can be different on the level of family, nation, and world. So we have to be careful with every thought, word, and action, because these set up waves of influence in the atmosphere. These waves travel in space and strike against everything in creation, whatever they come across. And then that will produce some effect. But we cannot know the effect because of the diversity of action. As we have just discussed above, there are so many factors involved in this. So that's why it is beyond the possibility of comprehension. That's why unfathomable is the course of action. So that is about right action. Now let's see what wrong action is. Wrong action is something that harms the doer. That's number one, wrong action. Number two, unsuccessful actions. Number three, actions that hinder evolution. 4, those that lead to dissolution. 5, those that bind the doer to the cycle of rebirth. 6, those that produce life-damaging influences. And 7, those that are against laws of nature. So you see how diverse it is, so many things to be considered. So now we know that even the field of wrong action is unfathomable. We don't know when we do something wrong, how far the effects are going to be and, how bad or, how non-life supporting. So we have covered right action and then wrong action. Now let us see what inaction is. Inaction literally means absence of activity. And deep sleep is one of them. But we also find inactivity in transcendental consciousness, cosmic consciousness, and God consciousness. So now, inaction also becomes unfathomable. But now we are wondering, everything is unfathomable. So what do we know? How do we know the full extent of action? Now Maharishi gives us the good news. There is a way to get around this because, you cannot possibly know all about the actions that you are doing, good or bad or inaction. And how we get around this is, and how we can get the most benefit of this knowledge is that without having the knowledge of action, one can enjoy the blessings which such knowledge would give us. It is like watering the root and getting the whole tree nourished. Even though you don't know how the sap travels from the root to the tree and enlivens all aspects of the tree. Only what is important is the effect that you put water at the root and you see the whole tree nourished, blossoming. So you don't need to know the mechanics of how the sap is rising from the root to the trunk and to the branches and to the leaves and all that. You don't have to know. Only somebody wise told you, put the water at the root and the tree will blossom. And you do that, so you're getting the benefit. It's exactly the same way. In this discourse, this is Yoga Shastra. Bhagavad Gita is the Yoga Shastra. It gives us the practical knowledge of divine union. It's just not for reading and being happy with what we read, not just intellectual understanding. It gives us the practical value of divine union. Yoga means union. So what is the benefit of union of Jivatma with Paramatma? The benefit is we can gain the highest good through activity. So we meditate, we transcend, we experience yoga, the unity, and then we come out and we enjoy life. That is as simple as that. So now, even if we don't understand all the mechanics of good action, bad action, and all those, we have just studied all that. So many factors are involved. And even without going into the details of it, even without having the full knowledge of all those actions, we get the benefit by just following the simple instruction: meditate, transcend, come out and act. So that is about action, right action, wrong action, and inaction. Now, Anita ji will cover the scientific research, please.
Yes, Hemaji. Since you've explained it so beautifully, and the scientific research, um, if you see the scientific research image here, it shows that all the three unfathomable is the course of action. So, in order to know what is happening, because action is right action, wrong action, inaction, that means there's something that is going on in the hidden reserves of the human brain. Now, the most important scientific research is that there is increased use of the hidden brain reserve. As we can see in the picture, the one which is very light, that is before transcendental meditation. And then there is so much of interaction in the brain, in the use of the hidden reserves. So it has been proved that during the transcendental meditation program, the components of the brain's response to somatosensory stimuli are widely distributed across the cortex because it is the brain which is the receiving and the processing unit, which tells us exactly how we have to react or respond to a stimuli. So there is then a greater improvement in our cognitive abilities, learning abilities, in memories, in academics, in everything, because now the reserves of the brain are being used through Maharishi Transcendental Meditation. So we are on the right path of going deep into the unfathomable course of action. And then, the outcome of it will be that we, after a program, will be always, in most of the cases, on the path of a righteous and right action. And when we do the right action, as we have read earlier also, then we are in a position for right decision making, and so on and so forth. So it's a very important scientific reserve which makes us use the hidden reserves through Maharishi Transcendental Meditation. Thank you, Jai Gurudev.
Any questions on this shloka? Otherwise, we'll move on to the next one. The next one is the last one for today's discussion. And this 18th shloka is like this. Karmanya karmaya pashyed akarmani cha karmaya sabudhiman manusheshu sayukta kritsna karma krita. Karmanya karmaya pashyed akarmani cha karmaya sabudhiman manusheshu sayukta kritsna karma krita. He who in action sees inaction and in inaction sees action is wise among men. He is united. He has accomplished all action. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev. Inaction sees inaction. This means that while the mind is engaged with the senses and through them in the process of action, it is anchored to the silence of the inner being. This anchorage provides the experience of silence in the midst of all activity. For the man who in action sees in action the permeation of that whole field of action by the non-active, ever silent being is a living reality. Action for him does not overshadow the state of inaction or being that underlies it. He lives the ever silent being that permeates all activities of senses, mind, and body. He sees silence in activity and activity in silence. Here is a teaching which enables a man to enrich the liberation attained by the knowledge that it is gunas which act upon gunas. It connects the active world of the three gunas with the silence of being, and thus, on the level of silence, establishes the coexistence of the ephemeral and eternal. It confirms the ultimate teaching of the Upanishads, Purnamadha, Purnamadham. This manifested world of activity is full Purna. That life of absolute being is full. Realization of this truth comes in the state of cosmic consciousness, but the teaching of this verse extends even to God consciousness. The realization of complete reality establishes a state of life lying beyond the unity of the absolute and the multiplicity of the relative, and produces the wholeness of vision that holds this and that both together in the light of God, in God consciousness. One who has achieved it is wise among men. According to this phrase, men are those who have realized either the truth of activity or the truth of silence. But wise is he who has realized the truth of both, either in the state of their separation in cosmic consciousness or in the state of their union in God consciousness. The definition of man given in this verse points to the conclusion that one who has not realized the truth of activity or the truth of silence does not deserve to be called a man. It is therefore an essential feature of man's life that he should be established either on the path of knowledge or on the path of action. And if he wants to be wise, then he must also rise to embrace the goal of both. He has accomplished all action, means in his individual life, he has performed the whole range of activity, gross and subtle. Moreover, he has performed activity on the level of cosmic life as well. Activity on the individual level includes not only ordinary mental and physical activity, but also the subtlest activity of transcending and gaining union with divine being. Activity on the cosmic level is of two types. First, activity in cosmic consciousness, which is fully in accordance with the process of evolution. And secondly, activity in God consciousness, which is on the level of ultimate unity of life. He has accomplished all action, also means that he has attained perfection. Action is a way of fulfilling one's desires. To have accomplished all action means to have accomplished all desires, indicating that one has gained fulfillment. It should be noted that the accomplishment of an action does not lie in gaining the fruit of action alone. It lies in gaining the fruit of action along with freedom from the binding influence of action and its results. The cognition of inaction in action and of action in inaction is the result of the fulfillment gained through the direct experience of absolute bliss and of the eternal freedom from bondage that lies in the state of cosmic consciousness, where self is experienced as separate from activity. In this verse, the sequence of expressions is highly important in order to convey that he who in action sees inaction and in inaction sees action is not insane. Shri Krishna Bhagavan adds that such a man has better understanding than other people. He is wise among men. Further, in order to indicate that this wise man is not just a theorizing man, engaged in mere idealistic thinking, Shri Krishna Bhagavan says he is united, implying that he is a practical man who has gained fulfillment in life. There are 4 expressions in this verse, each containing distinct and independent ideas. First, inaction sees inaction. In inaction sees action. Third, wise among men, he is united. And fourth, he has accomplished all action. It is interesting to observe that each of these thoughts is developed successively in the next 5 verses. The first thought of this verse is developed in the first thought of each of the other verses. The second and third and fourth thoughts of this verse likewise find their development in the corresponding second, third, and fourth thoughts of the other 5 verses. The comparative study of these 5 verses presenting the science of action has been summarized at the end of the commentary on verse 23. Shri Krishna Bhagavan gave Arjuna a vision of activity in inactivity and of inactivity in activity when in verses 13 and 14 he referred to himself as an example. That is why it is sufficient for this verse to make a statement of fact without entering into details and explanation. The following verses, however, discuss this point from a more concrete considerations of practical life. Thank you. Jai Gurudev.
So this is the last verse. We are running out of time, but I'll finish quickly. And Dr. Bhuvnesh Sharma ji is here. We should take advantage of his presence here. So this verse, it confirms the Upanishad teaching of Purnamadaha and Purnamida. Life of absolute is full, and so is the life of relative. So one who accomplished this is a wise man. And it's a beautiful experience. And I'm sure that all of you are having this kind of experience where you are engaged in activity, but you feel silence inside. And the last point in this is that accomplished of all actions. What does that mean? It means that he has attained perfection, means accomplished all desires and gained fulfillment. So we'll skip scientific research, and I would like to invite questions. I think there are some questions we are waiting for Dr. Sharma ji to make his comments and answer. So please go ahead. I think Maria had a question. Maria, go ahead, please.
Jai Gurudev, thank you, Hemaji. Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Welcome.
Thank you, Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev, I don't know if I understood it correctly, but in the beginning we were talking about the significance of the knowledge of Krishna in order to go forward. I'm wondering, is there a possibility that even in CC or even GC, that there could be a state where there's no incentive to evolve because one does not have the knowledge? Or is it an automatic thing that we get elevated to the next phase?
Actually, once one has got CC, obviously he is having a kind of fulfillment, and then he is just evolving with the nature. So I will say that itself, in cosmic consciousness itself, one has achieved a kind of fulfillment. But then complete fulfillment comes when the God consciousness is coming, as Maharishi was mentioning in these verses, that once a person is, we can say, having the God consciousness, then he is fulfilling the purpose of creation, or the creator, we can say. In cosmic consciousness, he is just, we can say, fulfilling his own individual activities. But then in God consciousness, he is fulfilling the purpose of creation. So what happens is then there is his desire is the desire of nature, I will say.
Beautiful. Thank you. I'm just wondering why it says, though, that knowledge of Krishna is so significant, the knowledge and the intellectual understanding.
Both are very important, obviously, because when we have the experience, then it has also to be confirmed from, we can say, the intellectual understanding. So to have the complete knowledge of the absolute and the relative, it is good to have both understanding and then experience. Both are necessary. Actually, what happens is, once one realizes oneself, in Ramrajtv it says, Janat tumhai tumhai hai jai. By knowing him, by knowing the absolute, you become the absolute. So then there is no difference. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's very beautiful. And usually I give this example. Somebody is telling us how a mango is. They're giving the description. It is sweet and it is soft and it is delicious. So that is the intellectual understanding of mango. So then when we are getting the intellectual understanding of Sri Krishna Bhagwan, we know all these qualities. He is eternal, Nitya, Paurushaya, and Shashvata, and absolute, and all those things. But that is intellectual understanding. Now, when we transcend and experience transcendence, we literally experience what it is that eternal consciousness is, Atma is. So it's like somebody tells you mango, it's really good fruit. And then when you eat it, only then you know the taste of mango. Until then, you can never know the taste of mango. So that way, both intellectual understanding and the experience of eating the mango both become very important.
Yes, because in the next chapters we are going to have the Gyan Vigyan, both has to be there. The Gyan and Vigyan. Yes, so that will come later anyway. Yes. Actually, Maharishi gives very good example of the sap, like realizing the sap, that we can say from in the activity we are realizing the, we can say, the absolute, and then we are seeing that the sap is pervading everywhere. So the sap, we can say, realizes that sap itself is the source and whole of the plant. So like that, Maharishi has explained it that way also.
Yeah. Okay. Any more questions?
I do actually have a question.
Yeah,
when you've done we're talking about right and wrong. When you've done something wrong by mistake, you have good intentions, but it causes suffering. What to do at that point, besides transcending?
Bhuvneshji, do you want to answer that?
Actually, I will just say that we can say we take it easy. That is the only way, because nature knows best. And nature, as you said, the intention was right. It says bhavo hi vidyate deva, means all the devatas, they know our feeling or the intention. So when you have added that the intention was right, then the effect will not be that wrong. The even that wrong will have, which will, its wrong effect will vanish, I will say. Because nature knows best whatever our intention is, and intention is very subtle. So when intention was right, it means we are not having that much negative effect from it.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So I also read somewhere, I think in Ramayana, when we made a mistake and we realize it, and then we regret it, we are repenting. And they said that could be healing and that could be evolutionary. Instead of saying, instead of becoming defensive and not taking responsibility and all that, we did something wrong and then we are feeling bad about it, repentance. Is that true, Sharmaji?
Yes, actually, I will say nature is very kind and nature knows, God knows everything. So intention, I will say, is very nice thing that she has added, that intention was right. So then we have not even to regret, so, to be very true, because our intention was right. So why to regret? It was all, we can say, nature wanted it like that, that's all. Because otherwise we are still keeping something on ourselves. And then this is just like, it becomes more complex. Taking things easy will be better, I will say.
Okay. Okay.
Very beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
But you do feel bad sometimes.
Till one is not realized, I will say, till one is, it depends how much our, we can say, how much realized one is, I will say. Because the feeling should not be, whatever nature has done, now you cannot undo it. Now you have already done it. So
Yeah.
nature knows best how to deal with it. If you want to keep a stress, you can keep on working on it. That is why I naturally, mostly I don't want to indulge in the discussions. Why? I remember always that Maharishi, our Gurudev, Totkacharya actually, Totkacharya ji got the knowledge just by simply surrendering. We are in meditation, we are surrendering to nature for 20 minutes. But then ultimately, it is the surrender for life. In every action, we surrender. That's it. So by surrendering, we are just, then whether if we are doing something wrong, it is also, we can say, nature wanted it like that, maybe. I will take it like that. Depends how one takes it or does not take it at all.
Yeah. For that surrender to happen, we have to completely let go of that ego that comes in the way, and sometimes it's hard to, surrender completely. So it's a process. It is yes. Something.
For that, it says the action is unfathomable.
Unfathomable.
Yes. You can't go, like, you cannot discuss and find that solution like that, because it is something complex.
It is. Yeah. We just read that in. Yeah.
I'm just thinking of what you're saying about surrender, and I'm thinking about and letting go. Maharishi's formula, giving the impulse and letting go, and that is the TM program. And by doing that, that's such a beautiful formula for release.
No doubt. Yes.
Okay. So we didn't have time for Vedic recitation. Manish ji, can you please do the first and last shlokas of 4th chapter? Maharishi said that will give us the benefit of reciting the whole chapter. Adi Anta, Bhuvnesh ji, what's that?
Adi Anta means if we have the beginning and the end, then we have the complete.
Yes. So when we say the first and last shlokas, we get the benefit of the whole chapter. Manish ji, first and last shloka of 4th chapter, please. And then Shanti Path.
Shri श्रीपरमात्मने नमः। अथ चतुर्थोऽध्यायः। श्रीभगवानुवाच इमं विवस्वते योगं प्रोक्तवाहनमव्ययम् विवस्वान्मनवे प्राह मनुरिक्ष्वा कवे ब्रवीत्। ॐ तस्मादज्ञान संभूतं हृस्थं ज्ञानासिनात्मनः चित्वैनं संशयं योगम् आतिष्ठोत्तिष्ठ भारत। ॐ तत्सदिति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे ज्ञानकर्मसन्न्यासयोगो नाम चतुर्थोऽध्यायः। श्रीकृष्णार्पणमस्तु। हरिः ॐ माध्योः शान्तिरन्तरिक्षगो शान्तिः पृथिवी शान्तिरापः शान्तिरोषधयः शान्तिः वनस्पतयः शान्तिर्विश्वे देवाः शान्ति ब्रह्म शान्तिः सर्वगं शान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः श्यामा शान्तिरेधि यतो यतः समेहसे ततो नो अभयं कुरु शन्नः कुरु प्रजाभ्यो भयन्नः पाशुभ्यः। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। जय गुरुदेव। जय महर्षि।
Jai Gurudev. Thank you, Bhuvneshji, for joining us. It was a joy having you with us today. And thank you all for joining. It had been a joy sharing Maharishi knowledge with you all. We'll meet again next Friday, same time.
Thank you, Dr. Hemaji. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.
Jai
Thank you,
Gurudev.
everyone.
Jai
Thank you all.
Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.
जय गुरुदेव दीदी।
Jai Gurudev Manishji.
Jai Gurudev, Hemaji, thank
Jai
you. Thank
Gurudev
you.
Maria, Anita, and Himabindu, and Sunita. And Happy Girl. Jai Gurudev to Happy Girl. And Anita ji for reading so nicely and explaining the scientific research. Okay.
Thank you, Hemaji. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev. So we'll meet next Friday.